Is a call to order. The meeting is hereby called to order, and we'll now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chandra, would you take the roll call, please? Next item is the consent agenda, and these are non-controversial items. Shouldn't take more than a minute. I give a motion to approve the consent agenda consisting of minutes and the monthly minutes for June. Seconded.
His mic's not on.
Yes. Jones?
Yes.
Christie? Yes. John?
Yes. Motion carried. Next up is our citizen comment period. This is a little different.
Mayor, nobody can hear you back here.
You want to use your microphone?
Yeah, using it now.
There we go.
The next up is the citizen comment period. We're doing this a little differently than we do at our usual meetings because we held this here and scheduled this meeting wanting to get citizen input, and it looks like we have lots of citizens interested in giving input. This citizen comment period allows community members to share their views regarding tonight's agenda items. Please keep your comments civilized. Your remarks should be directed toward the positions taken by council members or the mayor rather than at the individuals who are voicing those positions. Please limit your remark to 2 minutes, and please avoid repeating comments that have already been made. The first person to sign in on our citizen comment request is Renee Springston. Renee, are you here? Can you come forward and stand at the podium, and then you'll have to touch your mic so that it's live. And Aaron's going to be our clock master over there, and he'll wave at you or something if you exceed your 2 minutes. There you go. You're live. You're good. Speak into it.
All right, I'm going to make this really quick. As a resident of Eldora, I would like to submit the community's petitions containing over 250 signatures in support of confirming Interim Chief Anthony Schrad as Eldora's police chief. We also had several businesses that showed their support by requesting petitions to keep available for their customers to sign if they wished. These businesses have economic investments in our community. They support and want Anthony Schrad as their chief of police and public safety leader. In addition, I did not include the signatures of the individuals that do not live within Eldora city limits, but these individuals do spend their time working here, shopping, and eating out. I have also talked with several individuals who voiced that they wanted to share their support by signing the petition, but they were afraid of retribution by our Eldora City Council members. As an Eldora citizen and voter, I wanted to remind each of our council members that you are voted into your council positions by us, the citizens of Eldora, because we had faith and trust that you would follow your goals to, quote, do the very best to represent our constituents after we've seen to the needs of the city as a whole. To ignore these signatures would be to ignore your constituents and what it truly means to serve the public of Eldora. And I do have these, but we'll have to get copies. I want copies of them.
Renee?
What?
I just said thank you, Renee.
Oh.
Next up is Carrie Calloway Morton. Carrie, are you here? And please come to the podium. It looks like the mic is now on. Please share your thoughts with us.
Okay. No doubt tonight you will hear multiple accounts of how Interim Police Chief Schrad is a good man, a loyal public servant, and someone who cares about our community. While I agree wholeheartedly with all of that, my comments tonight lean more toward procedure and next steps, and frankly, how we got into this mess to begin with. It's my understanding that many of the personnel issues several council members are citing as reasons not to approve the appointment are old, going back over a couple of years. Since that time, Interim Chief Schrad has had no disciplinary marks on his record, and in fact, he's even been promoted. If the personnel issues did not deserve proper attention at the time they occurred, why are they such a big deal now? Also, it's deeply concerning to me that Interim Chief Schrad was never given the opportunity to address the concerns or have his side of the story documented. I feel this is especially important given the fact that our chief at the time some of these occurred, which would have been Anthony's boss, was suffering from undiagnosed health issues, which we later learned drastically compromised his decision-making capabilities. I'd like to know how Interim Chief Schrad was ever promoted to Interim Chief if these concerns were so severe. If these concerns were brought to the mayor's attention prior to the appointment, how could they have been seen by deal breakers by some of you and completely no cause for worry by others? Second, I'd like to address the staffing ramifications that will be felt throughout the entire police department if this appointment is not confirmed. I believe Interim Chief is legally allowed to go back to his role as captain, but since that position's already been filled, would we now have two captains? Or are you going to tell Hasselbrock that his promotion is no longer valid and he has to go back to an officer? Or are you going to tell Schrad that his position has been backfilled and is no longer available? Likewise, if one of those captains moves into an officer role, what does that mean for candidate Luterman? And then how does all of this not expose us and open the city up for litigation from all of those parties, plus many others? Okay, I've just got one more thought. Okay. It should also be noted that by halting the hiring of candidate Luterman but moving forward with the appointment of Captain Hasselbrock, you've given the appearance that this dilemma was created intentionally to force out Interim Chief Schrad. And I don't have to tell you how awful the optics are on that. Which begs the question, where do we go from here? What power does the council actually have in hiring a new chief of police, and what are the legal next steps if this appointment cannot be approved? I think there's a lot of confusion around that. Finally, I'd like to mention that our existing officers on the police force strongly support the appointment of Chief Schrad, several of whom have worked with him since he got to Eldora. None of them are claiming he's perfect, you guys, but they all have a ton of respect for him and they all trust him. In my line of work, I interact with law enforcement agencies daily, and trust me when I say departmental support like this is rare and should be considered during this decision-making process. In summary, I feel that the city officials and the council did not do their due diligence to address the concerns with Interim Chief Schrad when they occurred, thus creating this situation with no apparent way out. Further delay of the appointment opens up the city for multiple lawsuits, exacerbates the mistrust between constituents and city officials, and it shows a gross lack of consideration for our local law enforcement officers and is a tone-deaf response for the needs and desires of your constituents.
Thank you, Carrie. The next person on the list is Troy McDonald.
I'll let Carrie take my 2 minutes. She did a really good job.
Next up is Pat McKenna.
Now, Carrie has said most of it, and if she has anything to add to that, she can have my 2 minutes too.
What I heard was Carrie said most of it, and if she has anything else she'd like to say, she could have your 2 minutes too. Yes. Carrie, do you want another 2 minutes, or did you cover your...
Can I withhold that for a few other...
Sure. Okay, next up. Richard Evans. Okay. It seems you're becoming the spokesman for the entire group, Carrie, but. Next up is Judy Niemeyer.
I'll give her my 2 minutes also.
Okay. Oh, Andy Place is here. Well, why don't you introduce yourself, Andy, and tell them your position, because I think your comments are important.
Yep, my name's Andy Place. I am a peace officer with the state of Iowa.
Maybe straighten the mic up a little more. There you go.
How about that?
Perfect.
My name is Andy Place. I am a peace officer with the state of Iowa. Having said that, I want to make it clear that my opinions are mine. I'm here speaking as a citizen of Eldora and not representing my employer. So I've had the opportunity to work with Anthony on several occasions. Every time I've worked with him, he's treated everyone respectfully. He's done his job well. I think he has a lot of integrity, and I think he's very intelligent. I understand and I appreciate the fact that you may be taking information into consideration that we don't have. But in addition to that, I hope that you all take into consideration just the fact that all the people that have shown up from the community to support Anthony, and take into consideration the fact that when you're hiring a police chief, you're hiring a leader. And in my experience, Anthony's integrity and his intelligence, his respectfulness has shown that he has the ability to lead. And I think that he would make an excellent police chief. And I hope, again, whatever information that has led you to the positions that you're in now, take into consideration everything else in addition to that. The number of people here in support of Anthony, and yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Andy. You did previously send an email, and you mentioned something in it that I think is important for us to take into consideration. So if you don't mind, I may pull an excerpt out of your email. Would that be all right? The part that I thought wanted to be, well, I'll read a couple of. On every occasion I've worked with him, Anthony has treated everyone encountered with respect, while he effectively, professionally, and fairly executes his duties, even if they did not show him the same respect in return. I have called upon him to help me at different times with evidence processing, accident reports, and other items I knew he would be more familiar with than I. Each time I have asked, he has been more than willing to help, and his intelligence and integrity left me with no doubt I had asked the right person. Although there are several good reasons to call Eldora home, attracting other candidates for the chief position, I fear, will be challenging. There is not an abundance of employment opportunities for a prospective candidate's spouse, which would be a deal breaker for many officers, as a career in law enforcement will require both partners to work in order to comfortably raise a family. And then a comment that we're not paying our peace officers enough, and that, so I'll just characterize it that way. At the moment, I'm deeply concerned the city has missed an opportunity to have a professional chief who is well-educated, experienced, intelligent, and who, if we are fortunate enough, may stick around for a reasonable amount of time. And those, I think those were important thoughts also. Any place. Now we are out of our list of those who signed up. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward, please? Yes, Sam. Give us your name, Sam, please, and your address.
My name's Sam DeBuilder. I live at 608 12th Street, Eldorado, or Eldora. A lot of my friends call it Eldorado. 50627. The reason I'm up here about a week and a half ago, and I'm going to try to stay composed. I buried a friend. About 10, 11 days ago. And, or no, that's when it happened. We just had services last Friday. Anyhow, we hadn't heard from this cat. I called him Rock. In a long time, so we went to his place of residence, and Anthony And I don't know if Anthony, are you still here? I kept calling Anthony Thad. And I apologize, I don't know why I called him Thad, but I kept thinking his name was Thad. He never corrected me once till at the end when we gave each other a hug. But he went into this gentleman's residence, and his demeanor was so professional and caring. He was able to be the police chief, but also be a human being. And you may think I'm being kind of cliche with that, but I don't mean that other than he cared. And he went in and found out my buddy was lying on the kitchen floor. And he had been there for a few days. And he came out, and he was very warm, very respectful, and very professional in the way he dealt with me and my other friend that was there. And I told my other friend, if I ever get a chance to speak up about this man, I'm going to do it. And I really didn't know him. I don't think he ever pulled me over for speeding or any of his police officers. But if that is a character that you're looking for in someone to protect this community, you're missing the boat if he is not endorsed tonight. That's all I do.
Was this intended as a public comment?
Yes, the message on that.
Okay. We did get my appeal to the people appearing on Zoom is that if they wanted to speak, to get a note to Aaron, has yielded one from Darrell Meyer, the county attorney. It's very brief. I offer my support and praise for Chief Schrad. Is there anyone else now? Yes, please. Sheriff McDaniel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to speak on behalf of Chief Schrad, and I'm going to call him Chief Schrad because he was appointed the chief by the mayor. I'm not going to refer to him as an interim because the citizens obviously support him and want him as his chief, as does the mayor. And I understand there's some controversy in that, and that's going to be with anybody that you hire. Anthony wants to be here. I think that's the biggest thing. Right now, our hiring pool in our world is incredibly shallow. To have a guy with his character, his integrity, his professionalism, his experience and education is second to none. And to have him want to be in Eldora, Iowa speaks volumes. Having the turnout here speaks volumes. I've worked with Anthony since he got to Iowa. He's a fantastic asset to the police department, the fire department, the citizens of Eldora. I'm not going to say there's probably not fault somewhere along the line, but I'm pretty sure there is on everybody in this room. So with that being said, I 100% support Anthony. I'm not a resident of Eldora. I work here every day. He's just an all-around good man. His wife's involved in the community, on the fire department. His kids are in this community. Our world's become a revolving door, and to keep somebody or have somebody that wants to stay in small-town Iowa is a rarity anymore. You have one. You have a very qualified one. I would strongly encourage you to keep him as your chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak, offer opinions on the matter at hand? Yes, Judy.
I'm Judy Niemeyer, and I want to thank every one of our police department. They are outstanding. They are very social-minded. They help whenever they can. I feel they're very safe, and we need to keep each and every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Is there anyone else in the room or within the sound of my voice that is on Zoom that wishes to speak or offer comments?
There's a message from Diana Dickinson. What exactly is the reason why someone on the council does not want to approve Anthony Schrad to the chief of police position?
Okay, that's a question, and I guess that's okay. Would anyone like to answer that? Council member?
Pretty please. Would love to hear it.
Yeah, Cindy, yeah, and put your, you gotta put.
So my decision for the vote was based on facts. They were valid. My decision was based on facts for my vote, valid facts, information and criteria that the public does not have. For legal advice, I cannot disclose some of these facts either. For the public to say that these are personal reasons is not true. I have met.
Please, be respectful, listen to her. Go ahead, Cindy.
Okay. Some of the council members have met with the mayor individually, with Aaron individually, and together. And they do have this information. I'm going to ask the mayor right now, the information that we had in our meeting, was the information or the statements that we made facts?
Well, I'm sorry, Cindy, I mean, I'm not remembering all that was said. I mean, I think for the most part, they were factual, but I'm not, I'll speak more to that in a minute.
Because I want the public to hear that what we stated to you guys was not personal, because that's what the whole public is saying. They're accusing us of personal reasons, and that is not true. So I wanted it stated on public record that we had facts that we discussed in our meeting.
Facts were discussed. Yes.
Can I go back to the podium?
Yes, you've got, as I remember, maybe 4 minutes coming. Or 6.
So I want to be very clear and very respectful to everybody involved, is that there are personnel things that the public does understand cannot be disclosed, and we respect that. I think the challenge is that why weren't they appropriately addressed when they happened a year and a half ago? Why was Anthony allowed to be put into the interim role? Why were these things not documented on his personnel record? Why are there no marks on his record to indicate the severity of these concerns? And I truly believe that you all probably believe that you are trying to protect the city from making a mistake by bringing him on board. And I respect that. But I feel like everyone in this room feels like we're adults, and it's a risk we're willing to take as your constituents. I think you need to listen to that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else within the sound of my voice that wishes to speak on this? Hearing none, I think we're going to close the public comment period and move forward. And what I wanted to do at this time is to introduce our business for this evening with some observations and comments of mine. I have received a lot of comments about the apparently conflicting code provisions that deal with this matter. Very clearly, the city code says that the mayor appoints the chief of police. And I copied some excerpts in there with your agenda if you want to look at the language of the code. And yes, at the top of page 1 of the photocopy is the appointments. Mayor shall appoint the following officials: chief of police. But at the same time, then. The state code says that the mayor appoints the chief of police subject to the consent of a majority of the council. So there is a conflict. The city code says I alone appoint the chief. The state code says a majority of the council must consent to my appointment. Now, how can we reconcile these things? I'm going to talk a little bit about a concept that runs throughout the law, and that is one of reasonableness. The law kind of wants and assumes everyone will act reasonably under circumstances at almost all the time. If you act unreasonably, if you act recklessly or dangerously, you may run into trouble either civilly or criminally. So there is a common theme of reasonableness that runs through the law. One of the things that I also use in my review of this matter are the other duties of the police chief, or I'm sorry, the other duties of the mayor. According to, again, to the code, the portion of which is in front of you perhaps, as the chief executive officer, among other things, I supervise all departments of the city, except those delegated to the city administrator. I give direction to department heads concerning the functions of the department, and I have the power to examine all functions of the municipal department. So essentially, the scheme of the city code is very clearly that the mayor, together with the city administrator, runs the city, runs the day-to-day stuff, and gives direction to the departments and generally supervises the operations of the city. At the same time, the council does not have supervisory authority over the departments of the city or any of its employees. The council, which is at the bottom of the page, first page of that handout, powers and duties of the council include, but are not limited to. They are to authorize by resolution the number, the duties, term of office, and compensation of employees or officers. So there's nothing about supervision, there is nothing about performance evaluation, there is nothing about providing the evaluation to employees. I would suggest that all of that is intended to be under the mayor and the city administrator. That is, the supervision, evaluation, performance, and decisions of that sort are all within the power of the mayor and the city administrator. I talked about the reasonableness, and I want to explain how we got here. You know, our former chief had severe medical problems. That's not a secret. And we worked with him for as long as we could. He took medical leave, and that was fine. He came back, but in any event, the city parted ways with the former chief earlier this year. I'm thinking February. That might be kind of off. So, I need to back up one more step. When the former chief went on medical leave, which was last summer, the summer of 20, I'm thinking June, but I'm not sure about the date. In any event, it was at least a year. I appointed Anthony Schrad, who had been a captain on the police force, second in command. I appointed him as acting chief, not interim chief, but acting chief is the. And there is and he has been serving in that role since that time. And he is still the acting chief. After we parted ways with the former chief, I undertook a process designed to hire a new chief. And that process involved advertising the position widely. I'm not remembering where, but we did get resumes from out of state and in state and all over. So I think we advertised it fairly. and did get a dozen or more responses from applicants interested in the position. I then went through them and pared the number down. Some were not qualified, I could tell on paper, they didn't have any supervisory experience, et cetera, something like that, you know. Anyway, that process narrowed the list down to 4 people that I intended to interview. With Aaron's suggestion, and remember, it says the mayor appoints the police chief, not the mayor, and anyway, the mayor appoints the police chief. But I did, at Aaron's suggestion, assemble a group to assist me in the interviews. And that group consisted of Aaron Budwig, the city administrator. We recruited a former sheriff, a law enforcement official, former sheriff of Blackhawk County, where he'd served for about 10 years as sheriff, to help me with the interviews, and he very graciously agreed. And I also asked a representative of the council, Jerry Kramer, who is chair of the personnel committee, to sit in on the interviews of the 4 that we narrowed it down to. One of those, when we contacted him about interviewing, declined, and I don't recall whether he was just not interested in the job now or whether he'd taken another job. In any event, we got down to have 3 interviews. We conducted all 3 of those interviews on a 2 or 3 day time period. And then at the conclusion of all the interviews, I asked the others who were helping me with these what they thought. I wanted to solicit their opinions before I expressed mine. And they were unanimous in their belief that Anthony was the best qualified applicant. And after that set of interviews, I appointed Anthony as the police chief. I must admit I was unaware at that time of the state code provision that says I appoint the police chief with the consent of a majority of the council. But that was brought to our attention by a council member, and we certainly appreciate being made aware of that. And then, so we put his appointment, which I thought had been completed, on the agenda for approval. When was that? May? May. It was back in May, anyway, the end of May. It was put on the agenda for approval by a majority of the council. And that motion failed by a 3-2 vote. And many of you I saw emails addressed to the 3, so many of you know which of the council members voted against him. But that struck me as odd. And as part of that, and as Cindy mentioned, there were facts brought out. There was complaints made about his performance, about Anthony's performance, with respect to a few things, and I didn't think they were big deals, but fireworks and inability to stop all the improper fireworks was one. Yes, I mean, that was, right? I mean, I can let you speak to yourself. Wait, hey. Okay? There were some parking things, and there were some other things where the council members cited performance problems that way as in justification of their votes against Anthony. And I think that was an improper basis to make the decision. And I think that the way we can harmonize these 2 conflicting provisions of code, that one that says I appoint the police chief, the other that says I appoint it, but I have to get the consent of a majority of the council. How can we reconcile those 2 things? And I think we can do that if we look at the rest of the council's job, and one of their jobs is not to evaluate and provide evaluations of employees. and certainly not in a public forum. And I don't want to get into that this evening, and so we're not going to debate that stuff. I think that whether the council provides its consent to my appointment should instead be based upon whether I acted reasonably and undertook a reasonable search for the chief candidate, and whether that individual that I chose is qualified. I think that the state code provision was adopted as a way to keep in check a mayor who may be prone to appoint my unqualified brother-in-law as police chief with no experience, no training, nothing else. I would certainly expect to be called if I appointed someone who was unqualified, and I would further expect to be not get the consent of the council. It's intended as a backstop to make sure a mayor with unfettered discretion to appoint a police chief appoints a guy who's truly qualified, has the training, is a certified police officer, et cetera, all of which Anthony is. So what I'm suggesting is the test is not whether you like his performance over the last year or 2 or 3, or you have problems with things, but the question is whether he is qualified to serve as police chief. I think he is. And that way, both of the code sections at issue here can serve their purpose and come into play, and this allows me as mayor to appoint the police chief, and so long as I appoint someone who is qualified, undertake a reasonable process, and appoint someone who is qualified to fill the job, I think it is the obligation of the council to approve them. To provide their consent is actually what the language of the code. So otherwise, it renders another interpretation would, I think, render my supervisory duties unimportant, because the council will do their own supervising, will make their own performance evaluations, and will take that into account in whether they will consent to the appointment of someone as police chief, or that could be spread almost throughout the entire city. If it is not the job of the council to undertake to evaluate the performance of city employees and then use this power of consent to my appointment of the chief as a way of punishing or rewarding or putting on probation the police chief. Not their job. Very clearly not their job. So yes, and I fear that withholding their consent to this appointment was based on a desire by those council members to punish my candidate for what they perceive to be shortcomings in performance. So, I did call Erica, our city attorney. Erica Allen is here with us. I'm sure she's delighted to be here tonight and on this. And I asked her to take a look at these provisions and see if I'm wacky or not so wacky. And so, Erica, is there anything in the city code or the state code that authorizes the council to withhold consent to the naming of the chief of police as punishment for perceived shortcomings in his performance?
There is. Use your voice. There is nothing in either the Eldora ordinances nor the Code of Iowa that allows for a council to withhold consent to the appointment of a chief of police as you described.
Thank you. At this point, I believe I'm going to ask if I can have a motion to approve Resolution 7/21/2971 relating to the police chief position and affirming, consenting to Anthony Schrad being named chief of police. It's now been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 7/21/2971, consenting to the appointment of Anthony Schrad as chief of police. Is there any further discussion?
I have some discussion. My first question would be, what supersedes? Iowa code, does that supersede city code?
Assuming that's a question for me, when under Iowa Home Rule, let me rephrase. Under Iowa Home Rule, counties and municipalities have those powers that are required to fulfill their municipal duties and may pass such ordinances and resolutions as are required to do so, so long as those ordinances and resolutions are not inconsistent with Iowa code. When an ordinance is inconsistent with Iowa code, then we attempt to review the municipal county code and seek to harmonize it with Iowa law. And in order to do that, you look at the entire chapter, not just the one little section, in order to give effect to the intent of the law. And in this case, we have a city ordinance that referenced the Iowa Code section that applied, but did not include the language that requires consent of the council. And so I would say that at this point, an appointment by the mayor that is made without city council approval or consent, as the Iowa Code states, is not effective.
Okay, thank you. So the appointment that was made without, would not be effective without council approval?
Without the appointment must be made with consent of council, yes.
Okay, thank you. A couple other items. First of all, I really do appreciate all of the public attendance. I have received a lot of comments. I've had a lot of comments, through various sources, phone calls, texts, emails, etc. So I really do appreciate it. A couple things I just want to clarify. For the mayor to say that, because I was a no vote, it's absolutely out there, and that's, I'm being transparent. But to say that my vote was to punish someone is inaccurate. And I totally reject that. This is not a punishment. I thoroughly, with careful consideration, knowing the weight of this, and with a thorough evaluation, which I think is in question because we are on committees, we have duties and responsibilities that require us to talk about processes in the city and how things are handled. And then we make recommendations to the council. So I took great pains with careful consideration, thorough evaluation, and that formed the basis of my vote. I took this responsibility very seriously, and I wouldn't make that kind of a decision, and knowing that it's an unpopular one. Sometimes we all make decisions. If we think it's the right decision, it may not be the most popular. This is not punishment, I repeat. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that this isn't something that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It's a variety of factors that I would use. I have been an employer. I've been on the council for many years, and I thoroughly evaluated it on a multitude of criteria. So, but I also want to just state right now, and I sent an email to my fellow council and the mayor, and I was hoping maybe even to meet with the mayor before tonight, and that didn't happen. But the intent of this meeting was not to vote, a revote at this time. The intent that the special meeting, the intent of the special meeting that was called by 3 of us council was because it's a democratic process. There was an appointment made. It happens every day in state and city and federal government. There was an appointment made, and it was not confirmed. So I felt that we had an impasse, and we can't just let it sit. But there was really no direction and just wasn't sure what was going to happen. I personally met with the mayor and Aaron on 2 occasions. 2 occasions. And said, what are we, and I had met with the administrator, what are we going to do? There was really no answer. So it was felt that we needed to move forward, either reopen the applications, keep the apps that we have. Mayor had an opportunity to either bring forward a different name, expand the search, etc. I mean, but there might be a way to figure out how we were going to get past this. I, as a council member, yeah.
So if this is democratic.
Excuse me, could I finish, please?
Well, I have a question. You just called on me. So I live here in Eldora. I run multiple businesses in Eldora. I am literally the future. If this is democratic, why doesn't the city vote? Why don't you give it back to the people?
Yeah.
Easy.
Let the city vote. Let the people vote.
Yes, please, wait until I call on you if you wish to speak. Mel, please continue.
Thank you. So without having any direction, without knowing anything from really the May vote, and a couple conversations, it became apparent that we were at an impasse. So I was hopeful that we could come up with a plan.
Mel, there is no impasse. Your vote was not based on proper considerations.
Well, that's an accusation I reject because it was based on.
Mel, you did it. You launched into a tirade.
Yeah. Can we hear the facts? Follow the facts.
And
Hold on back there for a few minutes, fellas, please.
please. Yes, you talked about thorough evaluation, and we just established it's not your job to evaluate employees. job, if I may, is to see if the candidate is qualified for the position. Is he a peace officer? Does he have supervisory experience? Is he familiar with the city? These are the things that I look to in appointing him. Now, do you have something more to say?
I'm gonna, before Mel goes on, I'm just gonna say something. There is a statement, because Erica, the city attorney, did send an email, and in that email, she uses the word impasse.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. I'm sorry,
Mel, please finish.
Thank you.
I'm trying to keep this orderly.
Yes.
I want to let everybody have a chance to speak, but let's just keep it orderly.
Okay, so I will sum it up that because of the impasse that was in an email by our city attorney, we attempted to come to having some kind of plan. So we had asked to have this plan on our last meeting's agenda, and that was denied by the mayor. So we felt that what we should do is call a special meeting, because 3 council people do have the authority to call a special meeting. The special meeting for tonight was actually to, what are we going to do? Can we even attempt to reopen the search? Can we look at bringing another name forward? Because, well, there's other information that excuse me. Thank you. We had, the mayor and I, we did have a meeting, and so based on that, I felt that it would be premature tonight to have a revote, because there are information that I unfortunately am not allowed or don't feel comfortable stating. I mean, many times the public and city government do not have the same sets of information. It's unfortunate at times.
Hold on. Hey, civil. We will be civil. We have several police officers here, and I will have them clear the room if you cannot be civil. Okay? Mel, please wrap up.
Okay, so we, that's the purpose of this meeting. And I was clear in trying to make that, so there was no misunderstanding. That was not the intent of the meeting tonight. I do appreciate everybody's comments. I appreciate the fact that I have received a lot. But I do reject some of the comments and accusations that the mayor's made against me. Thank you.
Okay.
Can you go to the mic?
Yeah.
My question would be to all of you, since there are multiple sets of information or things like that, like you just referenced information that certain people have, certain people don't have, what would be the procedure to get all of that information out for consideration prior to the next time we vote? Because it doesn't seem like there's an opportunity to reconcile all of this before a vote would happen again.
I am not going to allow the evaluation. Evaluations are part of an internal personnel process, and we're not going to get into the details of that. I'm happy to share with you his qualifications for the job, but whether he issued enough parking tickets or not, or should be, somehow denied the position for that reason, we're not going to get into that. He is, by the way, he's had numerous years of experience as a police officer. He has a bachelorate degree and he has a master's degree in a field relating to policing. He has a wonderful family. He is a resident of Eldora. He is involved and active in the community, as the appearance of all the people in this room attests. He is a valuable member, and I doubt very much that we will find anyone better than Anthony if we were to undertake another search, which I'm certainly not inclined to do. If the council wants to search all they want and bring him to me to see if I will appoint him, I guess they can do that. In the meantime, we have an acting chief, and that acting chief will continue in that role until we can get a positive vote of 3 council members. Two of the council members who have been negative votes are up for election in November, for their term ends this year. So I don't know what their intent is, although I think, Greg, did you say you... Okay.
He's done, he's done.
What I reviewed, I freaking searched my heart and soul, what's the best for you? Now, I'm a citizen too, right?
Okay.
I lived here all my life, 58 years. I searched out, what is the best? Oh, sorry, Mike. No, what's the...
Speak into the mic.
Can I scream at you? Oh, hit the mic.
Speak into the mic.
Can't hear you.
Turn the mic on.
Turn the mic on.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, so I got involved. Everybody know, I encourage any of you to run, because I did it. I did my 4 years. I've given the best to you and stuff. I see it. I look at the facts. You want me to represent you? I have to make my own decision.
Your own decision.
Do you see it from the perspective? You know, it's like, I've sat on here, and it's like, I've never seen people so disrespected in my whole life. I'm so proud that you all came out tonight to voice your opinions, to be involved in your town. I sat back a lot of times and just watched, took it in. What's the best thing? Go home. I'm a Mason. I take it to heart. And I take it to make sure what's the best thing. I have my own ideas on issues. I'm not going to let anybody take anybody call change my vote and stuff. But I can tell you this, it's been a pleasure for the 4 years. I'm not going to do it again. Let's let the chips lie where they lie. And from my perspective, you can curse me all you want, but I did my best to show the town how I can make it prosper and take care of it, okay?
And he hasn't been that.
So,
We keep losing businesses.
Yes.
Why? City council.
They shouldn't be able to talk out.
Yeah, please don't just holler from the back of the room. First, we can't hear you, and second, it's not orderly, and third, please wait to be recognized by me and come to the front and speak at the podium. Okay, please, no more cat calls from the audience. Richard, you had your hand up. Is there something you'd like to offer? Yes.
I'd like to address the city council and ask them a question. Why do we have a mayor when the mayor can't make a decision? And why are we voting a mayor in? Isn't the mayor a leadership of the community and of the taxpayers? And then they have to everything go through the city council for approval. If I approve something, if I own a company or something, and I approve it, my decision should be the same, just like the president of the United States or the governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Other discussion? We have a motion and a second. Sure, Blake, go ahead.
Okay, can you guys hear me back there, guys and gals? Okay. Talking to the microphone's kind of hard for me because I'm naturally loud, so bear with me. I'm going to make this as short as I can. We all know how that goes for me. First and foremost, I want to reiterate what the mayor said. Not long ago, we hired Wendy Bradley as our HR consultant. We pay her a pretty penny for that, and her job is to do HR work, right? Why are we not letting her do that? Why are we continually sitting up here and evaluating the performance of the acting chief and using those personal evaluations to make our decision? In some cases, you could say that's just human nature. By the letter of the law, it's not how it's supposed to work. If we use it against the letter of the law, then we're not doing our job. Furthermore, since I've been on this council for 3 years and I got a few more to go, about 3 or 4 times a year I hear fireworks, 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 and I am damn tired of it. I've heard about it again tonight. It's not even on the discussion. And every time I heard about it, we got to ban these fireworks, ban these fireworks. Well, I got several people coming to me because they're tired of these fireworks. Well, I think we got more than several people in this room that want this cheap. Yep. So, if we listen to those several people about the fireworks, and we don't listen to the more than several people to support Anthony Schrad, then we are roaring the ugliest face of hypocrisy that this city has seen in a long time. I haven't known him very long. I haven't known many of the guys in this department very long. My vote goes to him because I trust him. There's a man on the department that I'll go to the grave with, and we damn near did. We served overseas together, and I'd do it again. A lot of men and women standing up there that I would do it with them. The right choice is standing there. If you want to hold your opinion, we have the authority to hold our opinions and make that vote. I'm not going to go against that for them. Okay? I'm making my vote for a yes regardless. But as it was stated before, the mayor made the appointment, and I'm going to stand behind that appointment. And there is nothing the city council can do about it but withhold his pay and withhold his permanent appointment until the next election comes around or until we can get one of these three to flip. So do me a favor, remain polite, respectful, calm, and if you really want the change, if we get a 3-2 no vote again tonight, just show it at the next election. Anthony's been polite and kind enough to be patient and still do his job with the utmost integrity. I guarantee he's going to wait long enough. The guy's got a few more years to go than some of these other people in this room, and I bet he's got a little bit more stamina to go too. Okay? I'm not going to challenge his integrity and his stamina when it comes to wearing that uniform, but I'm going to have fun sitting back and watching it.
Is there other discussion? Council members, audience members? Hearing none, Chandra, would you please take the roll call vote?
Kramer?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Hoy? No. Johns? No. Frisky?
That motion carries. That motion carries. Next up is consider approval of Resolution 721-2969, a resolution approving the hiring and setting wages for Carson Luderman as full-time police department employee. Can I get a motion to approve? It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 721-2969 relating to the hiring and setting wages for Carson Luderman as a full-time police department employee. Chandra, would you please take the roll call for that vote?
Kramer?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Frisky? Yes. Johns? Yes. Hoy?
Yes.
That motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Yeah. We're adjourned.